Welcome to this edition of the Community Election Connection Debates, presented to you by Rainier Avenue Radio World and powered by the South Seattle Emerald and Converge Media. Speaking of which, Converge Media is now open. If you are observing this wall right behind me, it is iconic and tells a story of its own. And I'm so proud to be here broadcasting in front of this wall. We're here to help you familiarize yourself with the candidates and the issues that concern you. We know that doing pre-election, homework is tough. And there are a lot of things out there that are important to a lot of different people. But here's the deal. What's important to you? That's why we're here. That's why we have these debates. At the end of the day, your vote is what makes the difference. Your vote matters. I think that you've seen that from the previous elections. Well, this is going to be an opportunity for you to get a little bit closer to the sphere of influence. Each of our candidates for this particular debate, which is again the King County Executive Debate. The candidates will be current King County Executive Constantine and candidate Nguyen. Now, I'm not going to read you their bios and all that stuff. You can go ahead and Google that. I want to save time to answer these questions. Our moderators will be Cindy Laws and Monique Lay. Monique has a show on Rainier Avenue Radio entitled Afternoons with Monique. And yes, you should definitely check it out. 2 minutes to respond will be the limit for the candidates. 2 minutes for each question to respond to each question. There will be an opportunity for a 30-second rebuttal if the moderator says that that's what should happen. Later on, there will be 1 minute to answer questions. So we hope with this 2 minutes that we will get real answers, not just sound bites. When we take a break about halfway through, when we come back, each candidate will have the opportunity to ask a question of the other candidate with a 1 minute, 60-second response if they choose to. They don't have to. I'm just here basically to make sure that everybody stays on time. However, I do retain the right to ask a question if I choose to do that. So we're going to go ahead and get started. We did a coin flip a little earlier. Candidate Nguyen won and decided that he would like to go second. Now, what that means is that when we do our opening statements, he will be second. When we do the closing statement, he will be second. And again, if there's a question to ask, he will be second, which means that candidate Constantine will go first. Candidate Constantine is joining us virtually, and you will have 2 minutes, candidate Constantine, for your opening statement. And having said that, I just want to make sure all of our technology is working correctly. King County Executive Constantine, can you hear me okay?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we've got you. Okay. Well, again, thank both of you, King County Executive Constantine and also candidate Nguyen, for running for office. This is really important things to do, and it's a tough job. And I think that the last 18 months, almost 2 years, have really proven that leadership is important and a lot of different things. A lot of different things. We'll get into it. So appealing to the folks who vote you into office, it is now time for opening statements. And candidate Constantine, for the purposes of this debate, I'll be calling you candidate Constantine. You have 2 minutes for your opening statement, and you are now on the clock.
Thanks so much. I'm King County Executive Constantine. When COVID hit here, first place in the nation, I centered science and led with reason. And in doing that, we saved lives. Now vaccine verification as of this week is saving even more lives and keeping our recovery going. Through a clear and sustained focus on equity, we opened our first mass vaccine sites in King County's most diverse and economically challenged communities. And we partnered with dozens of community-based organizations to get the word out and get people vaccinated. None of this is easy, but it is the right thing to do. I led the creation of Best Starts for Kids, nation's leading, most comprehensive early childhood program, Sound Transit 3, to link together our entire region with high-capacity light rail. of help through housing, buying thousands of homes to get people out of the streets with the help they need to stay housed and move forward with their lives. My administration has continually set the pace, and I'm honored to be endorsed because of it by diverse voices who recognize the need for level-headed, capable, pragmatic leadership. Like Democrats for Diversity and Inclusion, like public officials like Auburn Councilmember James Jairaj, Renton Councilmember Ed Prince, SeaTac Councilmember Tequila Govena, like Tukwila Councilmember Deshaun Quinn and Tukwila Councilmember Zach Eden, like King Conservation District Commissioner Chris Porter, and community leaders like Hamdi Muhammad, who helps lead my equity and social justice work, Rob Saka from the Redistricting Commission, Brian Carter, the leader of Core Culture, and from Not This Time, Davida Briscoe, with whom I worked to completely remake the inquest process in the case of police shootings. We've worked hard, we've earned these endorsements, and I would appreciate your support.
Did we just lose sound?
No, you're good.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
it's all right.
Okay, I'm not sure the candidate, Constantine, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Okay. We're going to, thank you, we'll get the clock situation. So candidate Nguyen, you're gonna get about 10 extra seconds here. We didn't get the clock started right on time.
No worries. Thank you.
And you will have 2 minutes as well to appeal directly to your voters.
Perfect.
And candidate Nguyen, you're on the clock.
Yeah, thank you. And where's the camera? Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm State Senator Joe Nguyen from the 34th Legislative District, White Center, West Seattle, Burien, Vashon, and Maury Island. And candidly, I'm not the typical type of person you would see in elected office. My family were refugees from Vietnam. We grew up very poor, especially after my father was in a car accident that left him quadriplegic. So I was raised by a single mother in South King County. And what's interesting is that I had to grow up as a janitor in high school to help make ends meet. I was washing dishes in college while serving as student body president in order to pay for tuition. And most of my life was been told that you wouldn't be able to amount to much because of your background. And despite the scenarios that we were in, I chose hope instead of hopelessness. And I started getting involved in our community because I believed we deserved better. I believed that South King County deserved better. So as I was working on issues of affordability and homelessness and even law enforcement relations, I quickly realized that oftentimes our elected officials didn't represent our values, nor did they show up for the communities, especially when it was tough times. So I ran for state senate believing that we deserved more as a community. And when I won, we brought those voices to the legislature and completely transformed how things were done. We helped pass progressive policies that people have been fighting for decades to accomplish. And what I learned was not only our voice important in this process, we should have been here the entire time. And of all the things that we've been doing at the state, so many of them have to be implemented at the local level, whether it is climate or transit, homelessness, affordability, law enforcement relations, all of those happen at the county level. And this pandemic has truly exacerbated issues that we've been facing for decades, and we can't go back. We deserve leadership that reflects the future of what our county could and should look like. And that is one that is inclusive, and that is one that makes sure that we all can be able to partake in this success as well. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here today, and looking forward to having this conversation.
All right, thank you. Candidate Nguyen, now you've heard from the candidates. The moderators are going to take it from here, and the moderators again will be switching back and forth on the questions. Our first question will be asked by Cindy Laws. I want to give you a bit about Cindy's background. Cindy's a longtime public policy advocate for transportation and transit, civil rights, health, and disability access. Laws has served on numerous boards and commissions, including Seattle Monorail Board, Seattle Disability Commission, the Hanford Advisory Board, and King County Metro's Citizens Advisory Board. She currently serves on the King County Mobility Board and the SeaTac Airport Customer Accessibility Board. Laws successfully lobbied the Port of Seattle to adopt the goal of making SeaTac the most accessible airport in America. And Cindy, You'll be asking the first question, and your question will initially be addressed to candidate Constantine. And both of you will be answering the same questions. And just a heads up to both candidates, if you get to 10 seconds, you might hear me just say it's 10 seconds just so that you know, so that I'm not just interrupting you at 0. So when it hits 10 seconds, you might just hear me say 10 seconds. Okay. And Cindy, you have the first question.
Thank you, Tony. It's really an honor to be here. Appreciate it. First question is regarding Sound Transit. The executive of the county is an automatic board member of Sound Transit's board. On April 22nd of this year, Sound Transit presented to the Sound Transit Board its safety performance update. The report noted that 8 people had been killed by linked light rail in 2019 and 2020. 140 collisions, and 140 collisions, nearly all of which were in Rainier Valley. 6 weeks later, 2 more pedestrians were killed. That's 10 people killed by light rail in just 2.5 years. The linked light rail through Rainier Valley lacks the railroad crossing arms that are present in the at-grade crossings in Soto. And although Sound Transit's own studies showed that people would be killed and collisions would happen in the Rainier Valley, Sound Transit did not invest one dime in solutions that have been proven to work in other at-grade settings. Our light rail crossings, quite literally, lack the bells and whistles and physical barriers. We lack the pedestrian gates and more center islands that would prevent pedestrians from crossing in front of trains. Sound Transit has, however, taken the lessons learned in Rainier Valley across the lake and up to the north to the wider part of the county, but has done nothing to invest in safety here in the Rainier Valley. What are you going to do to fix this?
So,
Candidate Constantine,
you
have 2 minutes.
Thanks. Thank you for the question. In the earliest days of Sound Transit, as they were trying to figure out how to build the first what that generation called starter line, they chose to have an at-grade alignment throughout the Rainier Valley. I think that was a mistake at the time, and I think it's a mistake that needs to be corrected. In the future iterations of light rail, we're going to need to make Rainier Valley light rail grade separated for safety reasons and for speed and efficiency reasons. And that will almost necessarily have to happen with a public vote because it will be very expensive. We are now in the process of teeing up the Graham Street station, which I helped include in the Sound Transit 3 plan, as well as the Boeing Access Road station. But interim safety improvements have to be made in the Rainier Valley as well. It is unacceptable that we're having fatalities there or anywhere on our roads or transit system, and anything can be done, should be done to fix that.
You have 50 seconds left, or would you like to forfeit?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, candidate Nguyen, do you need the question repeated at all?
No, you're good.
You have 2 minutes and you're on the clock.
Thank you so much. And that's a fantastic question, especially for this week as Disability Rights Washington is putting on their No Car Week and challenging folks to really live through the lens of others who can't necessarily drive. And this is one of the reasons why, is because it is dangerous oftentimes for folks on the streets when we don't have traffic calming measures. And what's also interesting is that there are interconnections with this question as it relates to multimodal as well. Oftentimes, the most effective ways for us to utilize the services that we have is to connect them better. And when you have traffic calming measures with sidewalks, with curb cuts, those things actually make transit safer. So there are significant things that obviously we need to be doing to lower the fatalities that are happening now, hopefully obviously get to 0, but making these small investments, I mean, truly when you're comparing it versus the total package of billions of dollars in Sound Transit, having these traffic calming measures in key areas. And that the reason why I think it's so dangerous too is because you're talking like a 5-lane, 4-lane road oftentimes in the Rainier Valley going full speed. So by even having some innovative solutions to ensure that the pedestrians are paying attention, those things. I saw something in actually Korea where I thought we could even implement here, where oftentimes folks are distracted as they're walking or not having the ability to kind of see where they're going, making it easier for folks to realize that they are in traffic at that point. So long story short, I think we need to have traffic calming measures. I think we need to be able to connect multimodal options better, because as folks are getting off of the bus onto the transit, making sure they have a safe space, making sure that we're using technology in high risk areas, to calm down traffic, but also to make sure that folks who are walking are able to understand that they're in traffic as well.
Okay. You have 15 seconds left. You want to forfeit the rest
Oh,
of your
you're
time?
good. We've done like 60 of these, so we just kind of bang them out at this point.
Again, you're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio and our presentation of the Community Election Connection Debates, Community Connection Election Debates. And we're proud to bring these to you again to just help you be a little more informed about the decision you make. Your vote matters. Your vote counts. If you notice a slant and a bent towards South Seattle, well, that's why we're called Rainier Avenue Radio. That's the community that we represent, and those are the constituents whose issues and concerns we are trying to bring to light here. And trust me, if it's happening in South Seattle, if it's not already happening to you, it will. Our next moderator is Monique Lay. Monique is a resident in King County for over 30 years, a graduate of the University of Washington's Business School and contributing columnist to 2 community newspapers since 2004. She's also the host of Afternoons with Monique. Yes, that's our Rainier Avenue Radio Monique that we're talking about here, a live talk radio program that we air every Thursday at 1 o'clock. So make sure and tune in. Previously, she was a financial advisor for a top-tier Wall Street investment firm for 10 years before founding Seattle Love Broker, a relationship consulting company. She's been certified in Vietnamese translation. Her past and current affiliations include the National Women's Political Caucus, Mensa International, University of Washington Alumni Association. Monique, you will be asking the next question, and the same question will go to both candidates. You should direct your question initially to candidate Nguyen.
Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio. I have the opportunity to met you before and supported your campaign for senator. So my first question is, King County Executive is a big job, but many people don't really know what it is. What are the roles and responsibilities of someone in this position, in your words?
Yeah, thank you so much for the fantastic question. And during this whole
And just 2 minutes. I'm giving you that every time. Just so
no, you're good. I assume so. We usually go less than 2 minutes, so that's all good. What's interesting is that that's the number one question that we've been getting on this campaign is, what does the role of the King County Executive do? And the second one is actually about homelessness. But the fact that you have the 12th largest county, bigger than 14 states, $12 billion budget, 15,000 workers, 60 different agencies, and it impacts almost all facets of your life, and most folks don't know what the executive does. That, to me, is a problem. That, to me, means we need to be doing better at outreach, ensuring that our communities know that these services are there, that the access is there. So for me, as a state senator, we can pass policies and allocate billions of dollars all day long, but they have to be implemented at the local level. So to me, King County means connecting with people. King County means being able to utilize the role of government to help people. As somebody who grew up in low-income housing that benefited from services that were available back in the 80s that aren't now, I know how effective we can be when we work together. But seeing the underinvestments in our communities over the past few decades also shows me what happens when we neglect our community as well. So for me, King County is the engine by which Washington and honestly the United States can be able to be successful. But that's also where we need to be investing, is the people who are here. So having something that large of an agency, having that many people in your jurisdiction, 2.3 million people, King County is everything from wastewater, solid waste, law enforcement, transit, affordability, homelessness. It is kind of the nexus by which we are able to exist in Washington State, and also kind of drives the future of our state as well.
You have 20 seconds?
All good.
All right.
Thank you.
Same question, candidate Constantine. Do you need any of the question repeated?
No. The King County Executive is the top local official in the county, and in fact, because of the size of the county, in the state. And the job of King County Executive involves, first off, being effectively the mayor for the unincorporated area. That's why I created in this term a Department of Local Services to focus all of the different county services that apply to local unincorporated residents and make sure we're providing the best level of service. We also provide contract services to many of our smaller cities that can't afford to provide those services. And importantly, we provide the regional services, metropolitan services designated by the state. That means that we are, by the state, charged with being in charge of the criminal legal system, of the public health system, of much of the environmental work, and importantly, mobility, transit. The county executive also appoints half the board of Sound Transit. You know, beyond the formal duties, though, the job really is working to unite the region. We have a county of 39 disparate cities. We have 3 counties with millions of people, and much of the work we need to do today involves uniting people around a shared vision and a shared purpose. That is how I got Sound Transit 3 done, from just an idea to gaining legislative authority to creating a plan and aligning all of our communities around a campaign to get it approved, or Best Starts for Kids, our bid to invest early and help the next generation do better than the last. Just approved, Best Starts will invest nearly $1 billion in our next generation, a critical down payment on a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay. And there's 20 seconds left. And I just asked, would you like to forfeit that 20 seconds?
Yeah, that's fine. Your timer works different than mine because I'm timing myself too here. So that's cool.
Okay. And we'll get to the next question. Cindy, your next question will initially be directed to candidate Constantine.
Thank you. Next question is regarding Metro bus service. During the early part of the pandemic, ridership on Metro plummeted, and so did Metro's revenues. Metro rolled back service, hopefully temporarily. Senator Nguyen has called for free bus service for everyone. Executive Constantine has expanded free bus service to a greater proportion of the population, while also building out the Via to Transit service here locally in parts of the Rainier Valley to more easily connect potential light rail users. At the same time, the average household income in Seattle is $128,184, with a poverty rate of 10.96%. I'm nowhere near that household income, by the way. Is providing free transit to everyone the best use of tax dollars? And if so, how do you fund that when there's so many other pressing public needs?
Candidate Constantine, 2 minutes.
Well, thank you for the question. First of all, we moved to create Orca Lift cards so that people with lower incomes could still afford to access transit, and then a free transit fare for people with very low incomes. The overall purpose being that people would pay what they could afford and always have access to transit, and then we would not have to cut transit because of a lack of farebox revenue. Farebox provides several $100 million that go into keeping buses on the road. And that's why I found my opponent's proposal to just make transit free for everyone so perplexing, because much of the fares that are paid for Metro bus service are paid by employers buying bus passes for their employees who are making, in many cases, as you allude, 6-figure salaries. They do not need free transit. What we need is the revenue to make sure the transit is available for people who have no alternative, who rely on transit. And if my opponent wanted to make transit free, he is in the perfect place to do it, not just a member of the state Senate, but on the Senate Transportation Committee. And yet he has never proposed any legislation to move us anywhere in that direction. I would suggest that we focus our efforts on making sure that there is more and better transit for communities that need to be connected to opportunity, to educational opportunity, to job opportunity. And as we reformulate our transit allocation policies, we are moving toward really focusing more of the service based on community need, based on the places that have no alternative, where people are transit dependent. That is the way we're going to achieve the kind of access to opportunity that we want in this region, where every person has the opportunity to thrive.
Thank you. And candidate Nguyen, do you need the question repeated at all?
No, I'm good, yeah.
Okay. You are now on the clock.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And this is a fantastic question. I think it's a very good opportunity to differentiate us as well. Because for me, free transit is more than just being able to take the bus somewhere. As somebody who grew up in Burien having to take a bus downtown to go to work, $250 may not seem like a lot, but when you add it up, $5 each trip going to work adds up for someone that makes minimum wage. So that's one of the biggest things. But also, if you're not able to think outside the box or have a vision for what this county could and should look like, it becomes very difficult to create that reality. Transit to me is the foundation by which we can exist in this area. Transit to me is related to climate change. If we're able to get more people in multimodal options off of the streets, you can lower emissions. If you're able to build affordable housing along transit spines, you can have more affordable housing. You can build in a way that is eco-friendly as well. You can be able to give people access to economic opportunities that they didn't have before. So this is an investment not just in the services for Metro, but for our community at large. And the executive kind of alluded to it, is that most of this is already paid for by larger corporations. So if you look at the total budget for Metro Transit, fares are about 15%. And the vast majority of that is already paid for by corporations who are helping their employees get to work. We already need a transit benefit district in order for us to fulfill the promises of the KC Metro Connect, which is a plan from 2016, which is still sitting on the shelf as well. So for us to be able to incorporate this as part of our future, it is an investment not just in transit, but for our future, for our climate, for affordable housing. To me, this is how we kind of build that economic mobility so that we can all be able to exist. And candidly, I mean, whenever we talk about things like transit for all, people kind of balk at that idea. When we talk about youth jails or money for stadiums, people jump at giving them money. So for me, let's invest in people. Let's redirect our resources so that we can serve those who need help the most.
Thank you. And we'll go back to our next moderator, Monique Lay. Monique, you have the next question, and that question will initially be directed to candidate Nguyen.
Thank you, Tony. Please describe your management style and compare it to your opponents. Why is your style a more effective leadership for the county executive office?
Thank you for that question. And this is a good, subtle one. I don't think we've ever heard this one before, actually. I'm much more of a servant leader. So I went to a Jesuit school where I learned a lot about that style of leadership, where you lead from the back, you listen to the communities. The biggest thing for me is great leaders do more than just good things. They empower others to be successful as well. And that's why I fought so hard to help elect other dynamic, diverse candidates throughout this county. But the biggest thing is the people who are closest to the pain should always be closest to the power. The people closest to the pain should be closest to the power, is because that's how you get good policy. That's how you uplift voices of those who've been on the margins. So for me, I care very little about the political power or candidly even the seat, so much as how do we get things done for people who need our help. That's why I ran for the Senate, and that's why I've been so aggressive during my time in the legislature, and that's why I'm running for King County Executive right now, is that we need somebody who's willing to listen and show up and do the work, even when it's not politically popular, who will make decisions based off of what the community needs and not just what the latest poll says. That's the type of leader that I would bring to this county, and it would be bringing everybody with me as well, and not just taking credit for the work being done by folks in the community, and then not taking responsibility for other things that are happening.
And how would you compare your style to your opponents?
We're gonna give our candidate an opportunity to ask the next question before we move on like that. So you still have 20 seconds if you wanted to finish, or are you good?
I'm good, thank you so much.
Okay, so candidate Constantine, you have 2 minutes. Would you like the question repeated at all?
No. My leadership style is one of really including as many voices as possible, having as flat an organizational structure as we can, and asking everyone to bring their whole selves to addressing the problems we have, not confining people to their lanes or their formal duties. And I've found that to be tremendously effective, though admittedly sometimes it becomes a little difficult for folks, and you need to provide them some more specific direction. When I took office, there was a huge debate going on about whether we should cut services or increase taxes. And of course, we have a terrible tax system here, so it's very difficult to increase revenues unless the state provides some revenue relief and reform. But what I said was, no, the value is in asking our employees and our residents, those we serve, to share their understanding, their perspective, their experience, and how we can get more value, provide more value for the dollars available. And in doing that, I put the county back on sound financial footing. I made it possible for us to have AAA bond ratings year in and year out. I made it possible for us to deliver more services for the dollars available. And we engaged communities all around the county in helping us figure out how we can govern better. One example recently is our Public Safety Advisory Committee, where we're working to appoint a new sheriff and redefine the rules and the structure of the sheriff's office. And I will be receiving their report next week. And I'm looking forward to working with them as we first appoint a new sheriff and then completely remake public safety in King County to meet the expectations of our residents here in the 21st century.
And Monique, you do have an opportunity for a rebuttal here. So if you have a quick question that you want to follow up on, both candidates will get 30 seconds to respond if you wanted to follow up.
I didn't hear how you would contrast your leadership style with the incumbent.
You know what's interesting?
30
is that,
seconds.
Perfect. The incumbent has been in office for 25 years, 12 years in this particular office as well. So you don't actually just have to listen to what we're saying. You can also see how that has manifested in our styles over the past few years. And candidly, I don't know if that is exactly what we're seeing right now, and believe that we can do a better job ensuring that the voices who are most impacted are at the table.
10 seconds. Okay. Candidate Constantine, would you like to also add to that?
Well, sure. We've not seen a lot yet from my opponent, so I can't tell you how it would contrast with his style. What I hear are broad statements, platitudes, and a lot of tweeting. What I have is a record of accomplishment that involves uniting disparate voices around shared goals and doing things that have previously not been possible, like standing up a genuine 3-county high-capacity transit system or creating the nation's leading early childhood programs.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break here, about 1 minute and 30 seconds. We're not actually going anywhere. We're just going to give our candidates an opportunity to drink a glass of water or take a break, and our moderators a second. We're going to get started again. This is what Rainier Avenue Radio, I've done a number of years. We call it shameless self-promotion. So you're going to get a commercial from me about Rainier Avenue Radio.world and who we are. For those of you who are hearing about us for the first time, and for everyone who's been listening to us for the last few years, just kind of an update and a refresher. And first of all, thanks again to Converge Media, this incredible facility that we have the opportunity to be at here. And again, you see the amazing wall right behind me. And then also South Seattle Emerald as well, another incredible partner. And so I got to say big shout out to Big O Omari and big shout out to you, Marcus Harrison Green. So Rainier Avenue Radio.world, who are we? We're a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week broadcast medium. We do audio, radio, we do visual as well. Some of the things that you may not know about us are that we also operate the Creative Arts Digital Media Academy. We teach classes in everything from communications and journalism to app design, web design, film, photography, of course, broadcast. And we've graduated almost 400 students. We have programs that have operated in Mercer Middle School, Meany Middle School, Washington Middle School, Rainier Valley Leadership Academy, Rainier Beach High School, Franklin High School, Cleveland. So you probably don't know that because we're a lot more than a radio station. But if we're going to be a 21st century broadcast medium, we have to make sure that the members of our community are prepared to operate and function. We broadcast over 70 different shows, either produced or hosted or starring members of our community. And they all do this on a volunteer basis because we exist to amplify the diverse voices in our community. So it's a bunch of everything. You'll hear talk shows talking about serious issues. Some things that are funny, well, at least they want them to be funny, but it's their voice. So you make that decision. Some stuff you might even find a little weird. We have a really diverse community. And we broadcast high school sports. We have incredible sports programming. And yes, this week we'll be broadcasting playoff game between Roosevelt and Seattle Prep. You can catch we are your radio station for high school sports. In addition to that, we also broadcast music of all kinds. You name it, whatever genre, you'll hear it on Rainier Avenue Radio. We broadcast in alternative languages, Tagalog, Spanish, Vietnamese, Fijian, because again, it's representative of our community. And of course, we offer programming created by our youth, for our youth. And we don't edit them, so you may disagree with what they say or how they get down or how they view the world, but it is what it is. We are simply a mirror reflecting the voice of our community. And you know what? You can have your own show. Won't cost you a dime. That's what we do. We'll provide you with a producer. We'll make sure that whatever you need, we'll give you training classes. We want to get your voice on the air. So go to the website at rainieravenueradio.world and check us out. And then again, if you want to take classes or you want to participate and be on the air, we got you. So again, my name is Tony B. I'm the host of the coronavirus special that we do every Friday from 1 to 3, where you can find out the latest in how the impact of the coronavirus is impacting Seattle and South Seattle particularly, and surrounding communities. We've done over 190 shows talking to members of our community, healthcare professionals. Yeah, check it out. So that's a little bit about Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We're going to get back to this now. So as we're coming back, we will have 1 minute for questions. So I'll ask our moderators to try and keep the questions brief so we can get as many questions in as possible. And then there'll be 1 minute for the candidates to respond. This is the point in time where each candidate has the opportunity to ask the other candidate a question. And you don't have to, but there is that opportunity. And so candidate Constantine, would you like to take advantage of this opportunity to ask a question of candidate Nguyen? And candidate Nguyen will have 1 minute to respond if you choose to. Would you like to take advantage of that?
Sure. May I go ahead?
Go ahead.
Okay. Almost everything you've said you do as executive is either already happening in my administration or requires the state legislature to give the county authority. Yet for almost all the priorities you've identified, whether it's making transit free, eliminating youth detention, spending less on the unfunded mandate that is a criminal legal system, you haven't even introduced legislation to deal with it. Why should voters believe you'll act on these issues as executive when you haven't in your 2 years and 9 months in the Senate? And why do you think you're in a better position as executive to get the legislature to act than you have been as an actual member of the legislature?
Candidate Nguyen, that's a lot. You got 1 minute.
No, that's a fantastic question. And candidly, this is something I've had to answer most of my entire life, where young people, especially people of color, are often told to stay in your lane, that these seats are for other people who are entitled, who've been there for a longer time. And that was the feedback that I received when I was running for state senate as well. And what's interesting is after I got there, we completely transformed how that system worked. We were able to do tremendous things that we've been fighting for decades to accomplish, like passing progressive revenue, like funding the working families tax credit, like being able to fund early childcare, early education, like being able to have money towards mental behavioral health, like working towards alleviating youth detention by having diversion programs. So we have been able to be very successful in these roles. And what I keep seeing time and time again was that the implementation at the local level was where we are lacking. So the fact that the incumbent thinks that things are going well right now, when we're seeing record homelessness, when we're seeing rampant inequalities within our system, is not appropriate. That's why we need leaders who will reflect the future of what this county can look like.
And time. Candidate Nguyen, you have the opportunity to ask a question of candidate Constantine. Would you like to take advantage of this opportunity?
I'd love to.
Go ahead.
Perfect, thank you. The incumbent has complained about the state often, and especially after he had mentioned that the executive's office should work to unite us and hasn't been able to do that. He's also mentioned on numerous occasions that he's interested in running for governor. When there is such a pivotal moment as we're getting out of this pandemic, would he commit to staying as executive even if the governor's office were to open up?
Candidate Constantine, again, that's a lot. You've got 1 minute.
Well, as I've said before, I put in 12 years in the state house, the state senate, and then on the county council to prepare myself to run for executive. It is a very big job, and even from being the chair of the county council, it was a big step up. My opponent put in 2 years as a state senator, half a term, and then announced he wanted to run for the highest office. I will run for governor if the opportunity seems right, but I will tell you this job is the one where I can get the most done with a progressive constituency and a strong county council that is aligned around our priorities.
To our moderators now, again, I will remind our moderators, let's keep the questions short, or I'm going to ask you to get to the point. I want to get as many questions in as possible so that our listeners, viewers can hear what the candidates have to say. Cindy, we'll begin with you again, and your question will initially be directed toward candidate Constantine.
Thank you. Skyway, one of the most diverse areas in King County, has stagnated for decades with purposeful underinvestment by the county. That appeared to be corrected a bit with the election of Councilmember Giele Ziele when in 2019. Still, the area has a lot of underutilized property, particularly near the Skyway Library, owned by absentee landowners. Do you think the county should move more aggressively to seek development of that land for housing, retail, and services? And if so, what would you do? What can the county do to speed up the construction of housing, and particularly in this area?
Candidate Constantine, you have 60 seconds, 1 minute, and you're on the clock.
So first, his name's Girmay Zahalai, and he's doing a fine job in his first term as a county council member. We had worked even before he joined the council to move investment into Skyway and White Center through, for example, our land conservation initiative, where we're creating green space within urban islands so that everyone can have access to the parks and open space we all deserve. But yes, we've moved millions of dollars, including much directed by our anti-racist budgeting exercise that we engaged in with our anti-racism core team to build up Skyway, build up White Center. These are areas that under the Growth Management Act are supposed to be in cities. Skyway tried to be annexed by Renton, that failed. We're going to have to continue to re-engage that even as we invest in the infrastructure and the services that the residents of Skyway deserve.
Candidate Nguyen, would you like the question repeated?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, you have 60 seconds, 1 minute.
Yeah, thank you. And you know what? Councilmember Zahalai is doing a great job in his first term. And if he would run for a higher office, I would fully support him because that vision and that voice is so important. And like we said earlier, was that this area in Skyway, similar to White Center, has seen underinvestments for decades. And it wasn't until that voice was at the table did we start seeing this shift. So that's why it's so important to have leaders that represent the communities at the table, because they will fight for that community. And the thing that the county can do, and Councilmember Zahalai has a bill for this as well, is utilize our surplus lands. How do we ensure that we can be able to build affordable housing in these areas, potentially with surplus lands? How do we have public-private partnerships with developers to build more affordable housing? How can we use land trust in these particular areas as well to ensure that we have anti-displacement efforts in place? We know that if we are not proactive in ensuring that our communities can stay housed in our places, they will get gentrified. So those are the things that we can do at the county, and there's a lot more that we can do as well.
Thank you. Moderator Monique Lee, who, again, check out Thursdays, 1 o'clock, afternoons with Monique. All right. Monique, you have the next question. Your question, again, will initially be directed to candidate Nguyen.
All right. So homelessness is one of the biggest problems in King County, and details tend to be light on how city and county leadership will solve this issue. Would you share with us your plan?
Yes.
1 minute.
Perfect. In 1 minute, the quick answer is that we have to solve the multifaceted issues that cause homelessness in the first place. It is 3 to 5 times cheaper to keep somebody housed than it is to take them out of homelessness. So we need short-term solutions like emergency housing options to get people off of the streets and stable. We also need to solve for the root causes of why people become homeless in the first place. Oftentimes in this area, we've underinvested in basic needs programs that have kept people stable. That's one of the areas that we need to invest in. We also need to make sure that we have crisis stabilization centers and detox facilities for those who need it. In King County, there's only 2 detox facilities for those who need help. And of those places, very few of them have full beds, simply because we don't have enough services and providers to actually manage them as well. So in the short term, emergency housing options, facilities with crisis responders that are funded so they can actually afford to be in those positions, and also solve for the root causes of homelessness to keep people stable.
Candidate Constantine, would you like the question repeated?
No, but thank you for asking it.
60 seconds.
Thank you. I think this is a great question because it points out that very contrast that we were talking about earlier. Lots of happy talk about things that ought to be. We're doing the real work. I have already purchased this year 859 units of housing, hotels, and other buildings to bring people out of chronic homelessness with the services to keep them housed. I started the day at one of those hotels where tomorrow our first 15 residents will move in. Ultimately, there will be 100 in that hotel. And we're going to keep going with 1,600 health through housing units, 500 24-hour-a-day enhanced shelters, and have created 400 jobs for people coming out of homelessness at $20 to $25 an hour to help restore our parks, restore our streets, put our region back together with housing vouchers so they can get off the streets immediately. That is the real, tangible, concrete work that needs to be done.
And moderator Cindy, you have the next question, and your question will initially be directed towards candidate Constantine.
Thank you. Since 2019, the legislature has passed nearly a dozen gun control measures. State voters have also passed gun control initiatives, and yet the crisis of gun violence continues unabated here in King County. In the first 6 months of this year, almost 50% more people have been killed by guns in King County than last year, and the number of people wounded is up 65%. What can you do? What will you do at the county level to reduce gun violence?
60 seconds, candidate Constantine.
And this is a tragedy that's unfolding across the country. Here in King County, we are taking a public health-based approach to our gun violence reduction initiative. That involves our public health authorities, community-based organizations like Choose 180 and Community Passageways, and Harborview Hospital, experts at Harborview. And we are engaging people who are likely to commit gun violence or people who are likely to be victimized by gun violence, and helping de-escalate, unwind the conflicts in community, get to the younger siblings who may get swept up in this. That is a part of the work that has evolved over the course of the last 2 years. I'm excited about the possibilities. It is incumbent on all of us to intervene and keep our communities safe.
And candidate Nguyen.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And unfortunately, we know where this violence happens, and there's data to suggest where they will happen. Oftentimes, it's areas that have been underinvested, areas that don't have the same access to public health or education or even green spaces. We know how to fix this is by investing in people and investing in our communities. And oftentimes, the same solutions for different issues tend to be similar because we've underinvested in these communities for so long. So in addition to the violence disruption and the organizations that we should support, we have to tackle the root causes. And we can't do just a fraction of what we actually need to do. So we need to be investing in public health in areas that are harmed. We need to be investing in schools and after-school programs. We need to have community centers where our young people have a place to go in order for them to be safe and to be seen. And oftentimes, we've talked to some students before too,
10 seconds.
Being able to take them out of their home where there might be trauma, even for a little while to calm things down, are all key strategies, but we have to do it rooted in the community.
Okay. Monique, you have the next question, and your question will initially be directed towards candidate Nguyen.
Okay, so candidate Nguyen first?
Yes.
Okay. Increased crime and lawlessness in downtown and other parts of the county needs solutions. What are you going to do to make our neighborhood safer?
60 seconds.
Yeah, great question. I think public safety is one of the key issues that we face as well. And how do we approach public safety in a way that truly makes our public safe? There was a report by the Seattle Police Department that showed that about half of the calls that they receive don't actually require law enforcement. So in my mind, we have to rethink how we're doing things to be more effective, having behavioral mental health crisis responders in place, having social workers in place for those who need it to free up the other resources when there are more violent crimes that are happening. So to me, is to remove law enforcement from the areas where they're not actually needed, and then being able to redirect those efforts to where there might be more crime that requires their services. And we've already started. 988 was something that we passed at the state level to help fund a number to be able to have a diversion program so they don't have to go through law enforcement. We've already funded diversion programs that King County is now putting in place as well. But we have to double down on those efforts. And we have to be honest with ourselves that this will be tough, but is important as well.
And candidate Constantine, would you like the question repeated?
No.
60 seconds.
Thank you. People have a right to be safe, safe from harm from strangers, from family members, or from the state, from police. And it is because of the latter that we have engaged our Public Safety Advisory Committee to help us co-create a new future for community safety in King County. But it does need to be safety. It needs to involve community. It needs to involve public health. It needs to involve human services. That's why I have proposed and funded 4 24-hour-a-day behavioral health street teams to engage people on the streets who are having problems, get them inside with the help they need. That's why I sat down with the families, the bereaved families of those killed by police, and completely remade the inquest system. I was sued by the police departments, but we took it to the Supreme Court and we won to hold people accountable and to create the change that will make people safer. It is critical that we align around the need to keep communities safe, and this is going to require all of us to think differently about the way in which we respond to emergencies.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio's Community Election Connection. This opportunity to assist you with a little bit of your pre-election homework, and again, familiarize you with at least some of the questions and issues and concerns of folks in South Seattle and surrounding communities. Time just flies by. It was a phenomenal job by our moderators, Cindy Laws and Monique Late. Thank you for being part of our community. Thank you for what you do. And of course, you know, Monique, I'm not opposed to shameless plugs. Afternoons with Monique. Every Thursday at 1 does some phenomenal shows. This is going to be the opportunity for final words. This is where the candidates have the opportunity to convince you that your concerns are their concerns, and not only are their same concerns, but they match up with what you want. This is what it's about. We hear about a lot of things, but sometimes people want things that directly impact them. That's a big difference between the big presidential election and more of a localized election. Ultimately, you make that decision and you make that determination. The candidates here are going to have 2 minutes to tell you why you should vote for them. And candidate Constantine, you are going to be first to go. You will have 2 minutes for your final words, and you are now on the clock.
Well, thank you so much for holding this forum tonight. You know, we are coming out of a time of multiple crises, of COVID, of an economic crisis, of an awakening of the American public to the reality of racism, of a crisis of our democracy where the President of the United States tried to tear down the fundamental institutions of our nation, and much more, a climate crisis. But out of crisis comes opportunity. And we have an opportunity now to accelerate the work that we have been doing. I've been telling my staff, we've been running for 1 and 2 yards against resistance all this time. Now the public gets what it is we have been working to do. We're on an open field, take the ball and run with it. I'm grateful that people are recognizing my leadership. I won every one of King County's 17 legislative districts in the primary election, including our own, the district I share with my opponent, by a substantial margin. And I'm endorsed by the Seattle Times, and this week, the Daily of the University of Washington and the Northwest Asian Weekly. I'm the one who's been able to not just talk about our shared ideals, but to take those ideals and make them real through hard work, through uniting people around a shared cause, by being able to understand the mechanisms that need to be worked in order for us to build the physical and the human infrastructure that will provide a better future. Our true north for King County is that we are a welcoming community where every person can thrive. And every day I'm working to make that real. Thank you so much, and I would appreciate your support.
Thank you, Candidate Constantine. Again, this is going to close it down. And Candidate Nguyen, you will now have the opportunity to appeal to constituents, voters, and you're now on the clock.
Thank you so much again for hosting this fantastic forum. And we heard from the incumbent. He said he would rather be governor of Washington if that position was open than be in this seat. And that's candidly part of the problem, is that we don't need career politicians who are looking for their next step. We need people who are rooted in community, willing to stand up and fight for our values. And what's interesting is that he also said he hadn't seen my leadership for the past few years, but I paged for him when I was 13. I even volunteered on his first campaign. I served on commissions in King County. We've been here the entire time. And what's interesting is that now that we are in positions of power, we're seeing how that can transform entire systems, how much more can actually get done when you have somebody willing to show up and do the work, and not just when it's politically easy as well. And that's what you would get from an executive win. Somebody who will show up and do the work every single day. This job is not entitled to anybody. It requires us to step up and serve our communities. Thank you so much for the time today, and thank you so much for being able to impart the voices of those in our community on your shows.
You still got 57 seconds if
You're
you
good, man. I appreciate it. I want to save everybody time.
All right. Well, there you go. There you have it. Now it's up to you. You have your ballots. Again, there's the opportunity for you to do more research on your own. But for us here at Rainier Avenue Radio, this was an opportunity to connect you to the sphere of influence, which a lot of times folks feel they are not connected to. Their issues and concerns are not heard. Well, you get to be the final judge on this by casting your ballot. I would like to, of course, thank both of our candidates, King County Executive Dow Constantine for running for office, and also Senator Joe Nguyen for running for office. It's a big deal. And I think that, again, if nothing else, the pandemic and all of the civil unrest that has taken place and everything behind that has showed us that leadership is important. Well, you appoint that leadership. Your direction is the direction that you can make a decision with your vote. It's the way this county will go. Again, thanks to our moderators, Cindy Laws and Monique Lay. Thank you both for being here, for what you do in the community. It's me, Tony B, and big shout out to The Wall. Converge Media, Big O, my man. This is amazing to be here in this facility and to be one of the first broadcasts here. Incredible. And Marcus Harrison Green of the South Seattle Emerald. Again, thank you both for what you do. This opportunity for us as Black media in Seattle to collaborate, to ensure that our communities hear from folks who live in our communities was very important. And this was a big deal. So thank you to everyone. That's it. That's all the time that I have on behalf of Rainier Avenue Radio and everyone in all three groups that work behind the scenes to make this happen. Thank you. It's me, Tony B, saying, remember, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you cannot, you are probably right. I'm out. Peace.
On October 23rd, we unveiled the new Converge Media Studios to Stephanie Johnson Tolliver of the Black Heritage Society of Washington State, who, along with Damon Brown of Creative Lou, designed our interview wall with epic images of Seattle's Black community of yesteryear from the late Al Smith's photography collection and Mohai. We often speak about our past, our community, our culture, our traditions. Though times have changed for us here in the Emerald City, Converge Media is firmly rooted in our history and grounded in our legacy while focused on the future. We want to say thank you to all of you who support Converge Media. Just know that you are the difference. You made this studio possible, and because of you, we continue to grow and thrive in our purpose. So be on the lookout for new, impactful, and educational programming from Converge Media. And remember, Black media matters.
All right, y'all, the time is now, not yesterday, today. Your 2021 ballot and election guide should be in your hands if you're already registered to vote. It's easy to pay attention to national politics, but let's work hard towards shaping the issues at home that really affect us on a daily basis. Mayor, council members, port commissioners, school board directors, all of these positions are on the ballot this year and they all affect you. You should care about this. It matters, maybe now more than it ever has. Typically, a non-presidential election year yields a far lower turnout. Let's make this the year that we change that. It's time. We have no excuses. Get up, get the F outside, and get that vote out.